Basketball fans, welcome into Canada's home for Talking Hoops. This is the Hangout coming to you from the belly of the beast that is the Air Canada Centre, the place where the Toronto Raptors made history, finally winning a 7-game series and moving to the second round of the 2016 NBA playoffs. I'm Akil Augustine, and that is Dan Gladman, the producer of the Toronto Raptors broadcast, with some news about Game 1 Tuesday against Miami.
Well, yeah, Game 1, it's going to be on TSN, but the tip-off is going to be early, 8:02 sharp. So best thing, if you're watching on TV, just be in your seat at 7:30. Watch the pregame show, but 8:02.
Oh, wow, there's a plug for your work. Just come
for
in
everybody's
early.
work. Watch TSN.
All right. And Kashif, Syed, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
The reigning champion on Fast Break of Shot for Shot. You guys make sure, if you have belt, to check that out.
Thank you.
And then Devo Brown, my man, fellow Hoop Club member and one of the best personalities on the radio in Canada.
Thank you so much, man.
All right, let's get into it.
Let's do it.
The Toronto Raptors finally exited the first round. 89-84, the final score, kind of backed the truck up at the end of that game after 3 strong quarters. So I will start with this Kashif Syed, super Raptor fan.
Yep.
Are all sins forgiven?
No, man. Check it out, man.
Wow. Okay.
Check it out. You know that saying, how it goes. Forgive, but never forget. And what we saw with the Raptors in the 7-game series was terrible. I'll never forgive them, and I'll never forget them. But I will forgive them for the moment, because now that we're playing Game 1 tomorrow night in Miami, we got to be a totally different Raptors team. We got to take it to the next level.
Devo Brown, are you forgiving the Toronto Raptors for their sins of prolonging a series that no one thought would get to the point that it got to?
I'm going to forgive them because you need to have a short memory on that stuff in order to move forward.
Yes.
That's all
Don't
I'll
bog
say
yourself
about that.
down.
But the problem was with that series, where I agree with this, is no one played well. It was a team that just played lousier that lost. There was no good team in that series. So we need to just forget all of that, move forward, and play some real basketball.
Man's chilling for the Raptors all season long. You're with it, too? You're forgiven?
Is this the first playoff series in the NBA that either of you have ever watched?
No. Hold on, Dan.
What are you
that was
talking
terrible,
about?
Okay, get him, Dan. Get him.
What's there to forgive? What was so terrible? You had 2 teams.
Hold on, wait, time out. There's nothing to forgive? You're too good for
what do I need to forgive?
You're two all-stars.
Hold on, Dan. You're going to give a free pass for what happened in the last 7 games?
They won the series.
They won
What do you want?
I let that go. I let that go. They won the series. That's great.
Basketball gets a bit ugly in the playoffs. I'm sorry. They're not the Golden State Warriors. They're not the San Antonio Spurs. They don't have that level of talent. Indiana was a feisty team. They're a great defensive team. They had the best player in the series. It was a tough series. They won.
Tougher than it should have been. I think you're glassing it over.
What do you mean it should have been? It was a playoff series, dude.
Listen, if you got... Listen, hold on, wait. Dan
Gladman,
Gladman, if you got regular season DeMar and Kyle, that series would have been over. It would have been a rolling.
There is no regular season. Did Charlotte get regular season Kemba Walker for 7 games?
They got better than regular season.
They got him for 6 games. They got him for 6 games.
This is also
not enough. That's not how it works. It's the playoffs. It's the playoffs.
This is also a 2 versus a 7 seed. Look across the water to the Western Conference to see what goes on with 2 versus 7.
Raptors won more games in the regular season. They were a better team on paper, and they proved to be a better team over 7 games.
No. We didn't prove to be a better team. It was a miracle in the Air Canada Center where we're sitting right now, man.
Okay.
That's what it was.
The Lakers had miracles, too, when Derek Fisher hit a shot with 0.2 seconds left years ago. That's basketball.
Obviously, we have 2 different sides of the argument, even though you guys wore matching shirts.
Yeah.
I like that, man.
We're going to agree to disagree. Let's move on. Let's move on to... Shut up.
Ben Sherman.
Let's move on to something else.
What's H&M?
Okay. Who is more satisfied with this first-round performance? Is it DeMar, Masai, Casey? Who is breathing the biggest sigh of relief? Kashif, I'll start with you since you don't want to shut up.
Well, let me tell you something, Akil. When that final buzzer sounded, I saw DeMar DeRozan go up to Kyle Lowry and hug him and whisper in his ear. And you know what he said?
What?
I'm about to get that max contract.
Is that what he
DeMar
said?
DeRozan is the happiest man on that court.
Okay, all right. Well, I definitely can't disagree that DeMar's happy
really
because...
say that?
Yeah.
No,
let's
I'm
telling you.
I will not
anyway,
vouch.
man.
I will not vouch for that.
He
Listen,
wasn't playing himself out of a contract.
I buy the. Listen to me. If you are going to be a max player, I buy that you are relieved that you were able to get your team out of the first round.
Thank you.
But for you, does someone else stand out, Dan? Then is it Casey? Because a lot of people were calling his job into question.
I mean, it's look. it's a loaded question because you can make the argument for everyone else.
Yeah,
The-
well, from your perspective,
the
Dan,
biggest
from your
sigh of
perspective.
relief is to me is for the sports fans of Toronto and maybe of Canada.
That
at
wasn't an
large.
option, but
There-
okay.
Well, I like to change your question. on the fly.
Obviously.
But it was such a sigh of relief for so many of us, for basketball fans, for sports fans across the country. But yeah, you mentioned them all. I don't think it was a sigh of relief for Masai. I think Masai has a security to his job that maybe the rest of us don't. For Dwayne Casey, huge.
100%
For DeMar DeRozan,
yeah.
huge.
Devo, something different for you.
No, I think it's Casey. I think Casey because it's been the last couple of years, everyone's been like, it's coaching, it's coaching, it's coaching.
And he finally got it done.
He got it done, and I think that's the biggest sigh of relief. But I'm with Gladman on this one, man.
Don't be with
For the-
Gladman on
Be
it.
with me.
For the fans,
Don't.
with
Be with
the
me,
fans,
Devo.
Don't.
because
Agree with
when we walked up and looked at each other, I just went, finally. So,
Okay.
I mean, I think the fans
All right.
definitely deserve this.
Devo, let me throw this at you.
Yeah.
Which non-All-Star Raptor impressed you the most during this series?
I mean, there's a few that stand out, of course, Norman Powell, Corey Joseph.
You can't take
Jonas.
them all. You can't
I know,
list them
but
all.
The guy
Pick
for me,
one.
the guy for me is Bismack.
Bismack.
And Biz, because
Talk about earning a contract.
dude, and just the rebounding, the energy. There was nobody throughout the series that went up and was just getting hype and hyping up the other guys and being that teammate to support everyone except Biz.
And
And,
one-
for that was something that you can't put on a stat sheet. That stood out to
One
me.
thing I want to throw out, too, about Biz, DeMar DeRozan had a heck of a time getting his shot off, but you saw when they started to use Biz to
As
set that
screen.
screen,
Oh,
yeah.
big time.
he disrupted the defense tremendously. Kashif, who's your non-All-Star standout?
You know what? I'll tell you the standout. I mean, not in the impressive moment, but in the most non-impressive would have to be Terrence Ross. I'm telling you why. Because
So he stood out because he was bad.
He stood out because he was really bad. And I'll tell you this. Drake needs to make an album called Views from the Bench dedicated to Terrence Ross. Because Terrence Ross's mind was nowhere in the game. His
Okay,
mind
all
was
right.
on Amber Road.
Quit trolling the Raptors. Dan Gladman, who's your non-All-Star standout?
You're killing my team.
Yeah.
I got to go with the guy who basically has taken Terrence Ross's job, and that's Norman Powell.
Thank you.
Just
Good answer.
Astonishing performance by a guy who is in his rookie season. He was a second-round draft pick. Nothing was expected from him this year, and he is such a spark plug. Hits threes, gets out on the break, and his defense has been great.
Amazing.
Norman Powell is a revelation in this playoffs.
Okay, quickly now. We're getting long on the tooth on this segment, but we got to get to the next opponent, Miami, Tuesday night. What worries you the most, Devo Brown, about this Miami team?
That Dwayne Wade and Coach Spoelstra have been there before. They've been there before. I know it's another unit with Dang and Joe Johnson, but they got those veterans, and they have a bunch of young guys that don't really care. They play free, and that makes me a little nervous, but I think we get this.
Who you got how many?
You know what? I was going 7 games. Raptors win. I'm not worried about Miami. I'm worried about the Raptors because they didn't win convincingly in these last 7 games.
Dan Gladman, who you
There is
got how
no
many?
convincing in the playoffs unless you're San Antonio. I'm concerned about Hassan Whiteside. Miles Turner had 5 blocks against the Raptors in Game 6. Whiteside has had multiple blocks against the Raptors in regular season games past. He's a concern. I still think the Raptors can and will pull it out in 7.
All right, my concern is Luol Deng because the Raptors have had issues at power forward all season, and he's now become
Raptors
a
in
great stretch power forward.
6.
Devo says Raptors in 6. I say Raptors in 6. But we've got more to come on Canada's Home for Talking Hoops. This is The Hangout. Shouts out to your boy Drizzy Drake, who stood up for the city. Shouts out to Paul George with that awesome tweet respecting the city that came and challenged him. We'll be back with more Hangouts!